everyone for joining us today for the midweek Aarohana session. We have a double header today. We have two sessions, one between 4 to 5 and another session from 5 to 6. So welcome to the first session, a very fantastic session. I hope you will all enjoy it. And as usual, before we get started, for those who are joining us today for the first time, here's some bit of housekeeping tips. Each of you will be muted during the presentation. You can type in your Q&A. If you go to look at the bottom of your screen, you will find a button called Q&A box. And you click on the Q&A box and then enter your question there. And your questions will be taken at the end of the session. The session is around 30 minutes of a discussion and a presentation, followed by Q&A. You'll have enough time to pick up a lot of your questions. I will moderate those the questions. I will read your questions and then get the speakers answer for you. In case we are not able to get to your question, don't worry. We record all the questions and get it answered offline, and we post it on our social media website. So please do keep watching out for it. Or in case if you have any specific question that you forgot to ask, you can send us an email at aarohana@niceorg.in. And you can also visit our website. If you haven't registered, please, I would highly recommend you to register on the website. And you can choose to attend as many sessions or as few sessions based on your interest as well as availability, right? And eventually, once this session is over, on a few days later, the session video will be available on YouTube in case you want to spread the word and share it with your friends. Then we are also launching Aarohana Business Plan Competition. That's actually open right now. And in the next couple of weeks, we are looking for applications from you, all your folks, and you could be in any of these 5 categories to participate in the business plan competition, either in the health and wellness, food and beverages, home decor and furnishing, fashion and accessories, or experiential tourism. In any of these categories, if you are running a business, you have to have a registered business, or you should have planned to register your business very soon. Then you please go to our website and look at the format of the business plan competition entry and fill up that format and submit it back to us. And we will have competition starting very soon, in few weeks to get started. And there will be a final presentation, and there will be exciting prizes as well as recognition if you go to win the competition as well. So look forward to seeing your entries, whoever is interested. With that, we'll kick off our presentation for today, which is on the food and beverages section. We have fantastic, great friend, Desmond Nazareth, who is the founder of Agave India, and Conrad Braganza, who is the manager of sales and marketing and partner at Agave India as well. And they would be talking about how their journey in terms of creating a really Indian drink, drink and beverage, and they would really talk about the journey as well as what it really takes for an entrepreneur like you to build your business in the Indian cultural space as well. With that, over to you, Desmond. I'm stopping my sharing, and I'll kick it off with you.
Okay, thanks a lot, and welcome all of you to this session. We may not address all the points that you'd like us to address in our presentation, but feel free to ask questions and we'll try to address them later. I'm going to share the screens now. Hold on. Are you getting to see it?
Yeah, make it full screen, Desmond.
Yeah, okay. All right, there we go. All right, so this session is about Mahua going global, which is a process that we are currently involved in. It's not still fully live. It will only be live when we land up in foreign shows. But it's about taking a unique heritage tribal alcohol of India out of Indian borders and into the world, something that we are very excited about because we consider Mahua to be a national treasure of India that was hidden in plain sight. So with that, we move to a certain framing device, which will sort of provoke conversation. We look at all these countries and all the special alcohols that are associated with them, partly because of the raw materials that were there and the cultural traditions they came from. And we noticed that India, which is what has one of the most complex and widespread cultures, has nothing that we can talk about in terms of a national heritage spirit at the moment. So that's the frame we want to use, and we'll move on to showing you the kind of provenance where you find Mahua in relation to all other traditional alcohols of India. I'm going to let Conrad speak to that and also to the traditional background of India in a short while. But before that, I'll give you a short 2-minute synopsis of how we started our company and how we got here. We are a craft company that's now at the intersection of craft and heritage. And for me personally, it's been a 20-year journey from concept to now. The first 4 years was just R&D after I had a kind of aha moment when I realized that I had seen agave plants growing in India, and I was wondering why Mexico was the only country making agave spirits, the most famous of which are tequila and mezcal. And it took me about 4 years of background research to reach a point when I moved to Goa to actually go in quest of the agave in the Deccan Plateau, where I thought I would find it based on a number of criteria. You can actually hear about this in more detail if you look at my TEDx talk. Just search for Mahua and TEDx and you'll find it. I will skip those details right now, only to say that in 2004 is when I went on a quest, actually with Conrad's father and another Feni manufacturer, went out into the Deccan looking for agave and found it, and then proceeded with about 4 more years of what I would call R&D, where I was playing around with these amazing plants called agave that we found growing on the Deccan, the right species. And then eventually when I came to a point where I felt that the spirit was good enough, I said, well, how can we miss this opportunity to provide some competition to Mexico and the agave spirits? And I decided to start a company. But one of the things that I set about doing was creating a model company that was anti-corruption, anti-pollution. And so it ended up taking me 4 years to raise funds to get the company going. It was a greenfield company set in rural Andhra Pradesh. If you want to have a look at what it's like, you can search for Agave Industries India on Google Earth to have a look from the vantage point of the sky. And also you can go to our website and have a look at some videos we have put out there which give you a drone fly through our plant. Now, that takes me from 2000 to 2004, pure research, then 2004 to 2007 R&D, then 2007 to 2011, building what ended up being India's first craft distillery, and then launching product in 2011 in Goa. And in subsequent years, we increased the number of products, increased the number of markets to go from Goa to Maharashtra to Karnataka and a little bit of Daman and Pondicherry. And then with some exports abroad via Europe to the US. So it's been a 20-year-long journey for us as a craft company. And somewhere along the way, actually, in 2011 is when Conrad joined us. And he's been with us since then. And the Mahua story I will come to after Conrad gives you a little background. How we got involved in Mahua, I will tell you after Conrad gives us the overall cultural background of Mahua in India.
Thank you, Desmond. We will show you pictures of Mahua and the various aspects of it and the people who are associated with it. Mahua is a semi-deciduous tree that is very important as a source of livelihood for the tribal people of central India. And as you can see on this map, Mahua grows right from eastern Rajasthan and Gujarat through a large chunk of Maharashtra, across Orissa, Jharkhand to West Bengal, with Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh having the most trees. It grows quite extensively in the plains and forests of central India and is very unique to India. It grows almost nowhere else in the world. The tribals consider it a sacred tree, Kalpavriksha, and it provides them with food, fuel, and fodder. The flowers, which blossom from March through May for a period of 1 month, are useful. So are the fruit and the oleaginous seeds, as well as the bark and wood. The mahua flowers are naturally sweet and edible and have been traditionally used as a source of, as a basis for a variety of foods and drink. The fruits are edible as a vegetable, and the seeds, being oleaginous, are a source of an edible oil. Mahua is considered minor forest produce under the general classification of non-timber forest produce, with the ownership rights belonging to the tribal people, for whom it is a survival resource. The trade of mahua flowers and seeds come under the purview of forest samitis and graham panchayats. Even if forests are cleared for typically for purposes of agriculture, you will still see the mahua trees standing. A tribal told Desmond that 10 mahua trees, which are mature, would provide for the expenses of a family of 4 for an entire year. An estimated 100 million to 1,000 million kilograms of mahua flowers and an equivalent amount of mahua seeds are collected every year. 95% of the flowers approximately are converted into alcohol, and conservatively around 500 million liters of mahua spirit are made and consumed by tribal Indians annually. Tens of millions of tribal people from central India have been deeply linked to mahua from a cultural and livelihood standpoint for hundreds of years. The mahua economy is quite unique. The mahua tree flowers from March through May for a period of 1 month, and this typically coincides with the lean season of agriculture, and the tribals use the mahua flowers to trade in exchange for money. It's a ready source of cash. One tribal told Desmond, it's like an ATM. So they use the money from the sale of mahua flowers for livelihood, as well as to hedge their risks in investments in agriculture. And these flowers are sold to traders and middlemen who accrue them and take them to cold storage. And then they make a return trip back to the tribal markets, where they're typically sold at double the rate, often more than double the rate. So if in a particular year, the tribals sell it after sun drying for 30 rupees, they're generally buying back 4 to 11 months later at 60 rupees or more. The uniqueness of mahua cannot be understated. It is the only spirit in the world that is distilled from a sweet flower. There is no other spirit like it. It's a category of 1. The mahua spirit has a very low methanol concentration, probably the lowest for any pot distilled spirit in the world. And methanol is the congener that worsens the hangover. So mahua gives you a very clean and happy high. The mahua spirit is also extremely versatile. It can be used as a base for a number of cocktails, as well as ready-to-drink beverages like hard seltzers and spritzers. And it can be used as a basis for brown spirits, as well as a number of liqueurs. Its aftertaste is very unique, a blend of floral and fruity, and it comes through beautifully in a variety of ways. So that's about mahua. We can look at some images associated with mahua now. So you see here all the trees in this image, which are bare because the tree typically sheds its leaves before flowering, are the mahua trees. And this is a bunch of mahua flowers. When the flowers ripen, they will drop to the ground. We like to collect our flowers, which are nectar laden and can get a little sticky because of the high concentration of sugar, on nets to prevent the grit and mud adhering to their surface. So this is the way we collect the flowers. And these are the fruit. The fruit outside can be used as a vegetable, and within they contain oleaginous seeds that are crushed for oil. It's an edible oil. It's also used to light lamps. And these are the tribals this is from Odisha. They're collecting the mahua flowers that drop to the ground. You can see the bunches of flowers on the periphery of the branches, as well as some mahua trees in the background as well. You can smell a mahua tree from like 300-400 meters away. These are our collaborators. We make a forest to bottle mahua spirit and a mahua liqueur, and these are the people we collaborate with. Yeah, this is how we collect our flowers. We put nets beneath the tree and the flowers drop onto those nets. Yeah, so when it comes to sun drying the flowers, because they're highly perishable if they're not sun dried, the tribals would typically clear a space, light up all the grass, and then maybe sweep it with cow dung. But we prefer drying it on sheets to make sure that it does not mix with any stone or dirt. The flowers are then fermented and distilled. These are how the tribals do distillation. You see a 3-tier distillation apparatus that we clicked in Orissa, where the fermented liquid is put in the bottom tier and the distilled vapors are collected in the middle, and the top tier is contains cold water for condensation. At the bottom right, you see a lady who has a 2-tier system, but there's a hidden tier at the bottom of the condenser. It's a very unique and carefully developed distillation system.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'll just take over briefly to say that one of the interventions we've made in the policy area is getting involved with the 2018 FSSAI notified alcoholic beverage standards and regulations of India, where they had completely omitted to put in pot distilled spirits. And I literally forced the move to make them do that. And while doing it, I took the opportunity to add every possible fermentable substance that I could think of that people use, and added a catch-all term that said any other source of fermentable carbohydrates. So it really is an open field to all sorts of entrepreneurs with all sorts of pot distilled based bouquet spirit ideas now. And I think traditional alcohols, at least in distilled form, will have a field day if people actually proceed to use this standard and get permissions in various states like we did. We are trying various policy interventions in different states now that we are known for having made a big breakthrough in Mahua and moved it from a position of being just a pure country liquor to being also an IMFL. We've got some distance further to go, but as you can see, this proposed schema involves we have 3 current levels of tax rates. One is for imported alcohol, the other is for Indian-made liquor or Indian-made foreign liquor, one and the same thing in terms of taxes, and then country liquor. So we are proposing something called the heritage alcohol tax category, which can be then used by various states to put their own traditional alcohols into. And the 13 states that make Mahua, we suggest putting Mahua into that category, which is taxed at a slightly higher rate than country liquor, but much lower than IML. So that tribal entrepreneurs, other entrepreneurs who want to work in heritage alcohols of each state get a chance to get going and not have to work at the extraordinarily high tax rates that IML and IMFL charge. This would give a big fillip to Indian heritage alcohols. So among the other policy matters that we are trying to influence states that are contacting us are to free Mahua completely from the excise regime. Mahua has been variously kept in check, and tribals have been living in fear for decades, ever since Mahua was shoved underground during the colonial era, thanks to a very repressive law that prohibited collection of flowers and making of Mahua alcohol back in the late 1800s. So we have done something which is to move it out of there in terms of allowing people to have an opportunity to make it at a higher quality level by suggesting that all country liquors around the world started have that we currently enjoy as international liquors were in fact country liquors at one point. So why not Mawa move from its position of shame to a position of pride? So that these are the things that we have been doing and suggesting to at least 5 state governments so far. And we don't know how they will go and where they will go with it, but we are hoping that they go in the right direction. And whenever they interact with us, we send them concrete proposals about how they should act and what they should do. One other thing that we are pushing for is a national MOA research institute where all this information about MOA can be systematized and put housed under one, because we believe that the whole MOA market $50 million if you take even a conservative amount for what Mahua costs, both in terms of the flowers and in terms of alcohol. I think there is another whole area where we are pushing for some change and trying to get governments to intervene in terms of creating Mahua banks for villagers who consume alcohol, Mahua alcohol that's prepared locally, wherein they don't have to get involved with selling Mahua flowers cheap during the high season and buying them back costly at lean season. So these Mahua bank concepts actually would really work for them from keeping money in their pocket standpoint. And there is a whole other level to which if other companies like us get into the making of Mahua alcohol and progress Mahua into becoming a heritage alcohol of India and take it abroad and sell it between states and so on, which is the vision we have, wherein tribals will benefit from much higher prices for the hygienic Mahua flowers, which can be used both for alcohol and for food. So we are kind of involved in these policy matters as an advisory role, and it's been fascinating for us to do that. But how we got into Mahua was just because we were doing craft spirits, and then we said, what is the ultimate craft spirit of India? We are doing craft spirits like agave, which were country alcohols in Mexico at one point, and now are internationally famous, or cane spirit, which was Brazil's national spirit. And we said, why not Mahua? And Mahua, it took 5 years for us to get permissions just to make Mahua as an IMFL. So you can imagine the amount of difficulty. After 130 years, Mahua finally saw the light of day and could be sold and bought in the stores of Goa and Karnataka. We've been waiting a lot for Maharashtra. Now, the next step, we believe, to push Mahua into the limelight is to take it international. And that's what we are in the process of doing. And I'll describe that shortly, but I'll let Conrad get back to two or three more slides, and then I'll talk about how we are taking Mahua international.
Here you see goats picking their way through some Mahua flowers that have fallen. Desmond tells a story of the first time he encountered the flowers. He had to fight with a cow and a goat for a share of the Mahua flowers. On the periphery of the slide, you see some Gond art associated with a lot of folklore. So there's a lot of culture and storytelling associated with Mahua. There are a lot of songs also associated with Mahua. It's very, very significant to the tribal peoples of India. And this is us doing events focusing on Mahua at various places in Goa, which was the first market where we launched. Not many people in Goa had tasted Mahua before, and if they had heard about it, they'd heard about it being, this lowly country liquor. So we got the opportunity to sort of give Mahua a little bit of a facelift while paying homage to the tribal peoples of India who've been distilling it for centuries. And people have always appreciated how clean it is, how happy the high is, and its unique and subtle flavor profile that generally comes in as an aftertaste. Yeah, and Mahua was recognized and awarded you know, product debut of the year as an indigenous spirit in November, the same year that we launched in Goa. Both our liqueur and our spirit won awards at this prestigious award.
Okay. So now we want to change the game and make people in the course of the 20s, by the end of the decade that the 20s represent, we want Maua to be associated with the country India, almost like in a knee-jerk kind of way. You say Mexico, tequila, USA, bourbon, Sri Lanka, coconut arak, Maua, India. It's a long journey, and we are just at the start of it. We are in the process of raising money to take Maua to the world now. We were on the verge of closing some deals in March when COVID hit and everything got postponed, and it became a matter of survival for us as a company, a small company with very little cash in the bank. But we ended up being able to survive and unlock some of the money we have in the market, but not enough to take Maua abroad, for which we are in the process of trying to raise close to 5.5 million US dollars over the next few months, and to execute a 3-year plan to take it to certain select markets of the world where there are lots of people of Indian origin. We believe that these folks of Indian origin, some of whom will know of Maua or heard of Maua, and maybe a few tasted Maua, will hear the story, will realize that this is an amazing drink that has emerged out of India, and this black swan way, a black swan event being defined as something completely unexpected, comes out of left field and becomes a very significant player in the mind's eye. The blue ocean opportunity is a marketing opportunity, because we are still the only official manufacturers of international quality Maua, and we have had a chance to make big leaps in terms of the superior expressions of Maua. We have just released 2 expressions of Maua in India, and they are the base expressions. We are going to be creating super premium, ultra premium versions of Maua to take to the world, because India is moving far too slow for us, and we have to basically, not just survive as a company, but grow as a company. So this fundraise that we are going through will take us through this 3-year period, will allow us to take our superior Maua expressions to the world, get the world excited about it, and then hopefully by that time, Indian state governments and India will have realized that they should really free Maua even more than they have, and allow companies like ours and other companies that join us in this big quest to not only write the story of Maua nationally, but internationally too. And we are going to be doing an interesting kind of fundraise as part of our fundraise, if not the full one, wherein we will do equity crowdfunding. Equity crowdfunding is fairly new in the world of startups and growth companies. And unfortunately, India does not allow it currently within the borders of India. So we're looking to do it care of some partner organization abroad, which then raises the money for specifically Maua to the world, hopefully mostly from people of Indian origin and other people who like these cultural matters. And they will then invest in us in order to enable us to take Maua to the world over the next 3 years. So we pretty much done with the overview of our presentation. Conrad, do you have anything to add at this point, or shall we open up the floor to questions?
Yeah, let's open it up to questions.
Bala?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Desmond. Thank you, Conrad, for walking us through the presentation. It's fantastic. I'm really enjoyed the slideshow of the pictures you've shown of the tree and the flowers and the people. Really make it very, human in the whole thing. A few questions is that you mentioned that they sell during the high season and buy back during the low season, and because of the cold storage issues there. Do they? Why can't they during the high season? Why can't they produce the spirit and store it as spirit? Any reason why they sell and then buy back?
Yeah, I'll take this. Yeah, so there are limitations to how much spirit they can make, and it differs depending on the state and depending on occasion. Like I think Madhya Pradesh has certain stipulations for weddings and certain stipulations for regular days, and it's fairly limited. Even the number of flowers that can be kept in Maharashtra, in Yavatmal, is regulated. After September, after August, you can have only so many kilos at home. So for those reasons, they have to generally sell in high season. And also high season coincides with lean season for agriculture, and money is short, and you want to be able to invest in the next year's crop, as well as you need money to sustain your life. So that's the reason why it gets sold. And when they get returns from agriculture during the festive season, that's when they typically buy back mahua flowers and distill mahua with it. So it's a very unique economy.
I see. That's quite interesting. Does this new farm bills have any impact on them or no?
Not that we know of, because mahua is not considered to be something that's farmed. It's something that's gathered as a non-timber forest produce. It's minor forest produce. It typically comes under these minimum support price regimes for all these sorts of things that are forest generated and are part of the livelihood of tribal people.
I see. Okay, that's interesting. There's one question by Malcolm, and his question was, could you explain why mahua was forced underground during British period?
Yeah, Conrad, you want to take that?
Yeah, I want to take that. So there were policies that were made, and the guidance for this policy making were either puritanical or mercenary. The British wanted to earn revenue from alcohol, and as a result, they took away the survival resources like toddy and mahua from the hands of the people, and also they wanted to check intemperance. So for those two reasons, mahua was pushed underground.
I see. Okay, and and then continuing from your presentations point of view, when you guys decided to set up a plant and distill mahua from the flowers, what kind of challenges did you guys face? Can you walk us through what is the process look like to even because particularly this is a tribal, number one, it is regulated, number two, it is tribal, something related to tribal, which is even more sensitive. So I'm sure there are, as unique challenges that you guys have faced here. Could you kind of walk us through your experience?
Yeah, sure. There was no, let's talk about setting up our craft distillery in the first place. The concept of craft distillery didn't really exist at the time we were setting it up. When people talk distilleries, they assume that you were producing ENA and in large quantities, or you were bottling ENA after flavoring it and in large quantities. The concept of a micro distillery or craft distillery was alien to most states, and even in the state where we found it written in the books, it was something that nobody had done. So we had a lot of difficulty explaining what we were trying to do and how a distillery that we was starting up with 500 liters a day as opposed to 50,000 liters a day could survive. And they were, we had to face all kinds of questions. And that too, we were starting to do things not with molasses and grain, which is what all large distilleries do. They figure out a way to turn that, molasses is already sweet, but they break down the grain into sweet substances and then ferment and then use column stills to make extra neutral alcohol, ENA. And we were here saying we are going to use agave plants from, this semi-arid area. And they were like, what is agave? Is this, that, or the other? So lots of learning. It took ages to get people to understand. And we were an anti-corruption company, so we didn't facilitate quick movement of files. We had to do it the hard way. And then we were building a greenfield distillery in rural Andhra Pradesh. So everything took tons and tons of time, and we had no people we could just hire off the bat and say, get them to work. Everybody had to be trained. So it was a fascinating experience dealing with dozens of authorities from village level to district level to state level to central level too. And getting people to accept something like this was really, this part of my hair stayed black, but this turned gray. That's part of the process. I think this has time to turn gray still.
With your second plant, I guess.
Yeah. So then the business of mahua we introduced mahua. That was a whole other battle. I mean, we were able to convince people about how these country spirits in other countries turn into international spirits, which India was importing, and how we were going to make them with Indian raw materials, Indian know-how, etc. And eventually people said, okay, if you want to commit suicide, please go ahead. And here we are, we are still alive. But it was that thing of, why are you concerned about whether we'll survive? We are trying something new, different, orthogonal to the Indian industry. Let us be. Now with we luckily didn't apply for MOA permissions the same time we applied for agave permissions and cane permissions and other things, because otherwise we would have been stuck for years. Right. Because all those permissions go as a basket. So one of the learnings is when you're starting something, if you were asking about learnings, don't ask for everything in one shot. What you do is you apply for a license to do something that you really want to start with, and then keep adding on to that slowly later, because otherwise the whole basket gets held back if there's objection to one thing in the basket.
Got it.
Okay?
Got it.
So
that's a good takeaway.
Yeah. So MOA, after we had gotten going and to some extent, we got written about a lot because our products are innovative. We started getting a lot of good like word of mouth and so on. So we thought, why not take this MOA thing, which is a country liquor right now, and see what's involved in turning it into something official and making it in our plant. And it took us about 4 to 5 years to convince the government of Andhra Pradesh, where we have our craft distillery, that this was something worth making at international quality level, and they finally gave us permission. Kind of reluctantly. Then we had to convince the Goa government, where we are bottling. We do all our bottling and blending operations in Goa. In Andhra, we just bulk produce. So that happened. And then after that, we had to then work with various central Indian governments, because we were working with tribal groups there. You saw some of those slides, to collect the flowers in the way that we want, because we believe that international quality, here's another learning, international quality starts at raw material point. If you don't have good raw material, in our case, hygiene was a critical item, right from the get-go, then your quality suffers on the back end. I mean, you cannot create diamonds out of coal unless, though you could actually scientifically, under great pressure and temperature conditions you can, but just under normal conditions you can't. So we were able to create diamonds out of coal. But the coal was very clean and so on and so forth. So the idea was that we are able to do certain things only because we have understood what gives you international quality. And our aim has always been giving international quality to the Indian middle class. Now we're going to give international quality MOA to the world, in the sense that they have never experienced MOA. MOA, as Conrad pointed out, is unique to India. Maybe there are a few trees in Pakistan and a few in Bangladesh and maybe a few in Myanmar and Sri Lanka, but the vast forests of MOA, the millions of trees, are all in India. And we are going to be getting a chance to present this to the world and see if we can make this in a small part of the MOA component into an export quality thing. It will really benefit tribal people, because we are encouraging states to fund tribals to start distilleries, small distilleries that engage with tourism. So first of all, we are looking at how they can get higher prices for hygienic flowers, how they can get wider markets for food grade flowers. Then we're looking at how they could start small distilleries to feed the tourist market and to sell intrastate, within the state boundary, even as a country liquor, high quality MOA. And then eventually, when enough states get into the heritage alcohol tax category, then maybe intrastate sales can happen and international sales can happen. So all these are part of the outreach we are doing. While we are doing the same thing, we've taken the lead, we're showing the way, but we'd like to spread the goodness around. That's part of our whole structure. Now, the difficulties were in convincing authorities without giving the grease money. And it takes perseverance, persistence, immense patience. Sometimes, I mean, you have to, fold your legs and look like the Buddha or something. Just like you're going to outwait them for eons.
Right.
And they eventually give up. Anti-pollution stance also. I mean, we didn't cut corners anywhere. We even wasted money on things that we thought were stupid, but because they met the official rules, the rules applied to big distilleries, big everything. We were small and really, in the middle of nowhere, no chance of polluting anything, but we had to waste money putting in all kinds of stuff in order to do that. But we prefer to do that rather than to kowtow to authorities.
Got it. Got it. Well, thanks for walking us through that experience. How did you narrow down the location of your plant? You said you bulk produce it in Andhra Pradesh and bottle it in Goa. How did you? What consideration went into your setting up or figuring out the location?
So basically, once we made the discovery that the Deccan Plateau as a whole was very hospitable for growth of agave, we started with agave. Our company's name is our DNA actually, Agave India. Even though now we should be more rightfully named Mahua India, since our focus is going to be on Mahua. But Agave India is where we started, and agave grew we found huge numbers of agave growing in a certain part of India, which is the tri-state area involving part of Tamil Nadu, part of Karnataka, and part of Andhra. There's a near, around Chittoor, Kolar district is where a lot of agave were being grown for various purposes. One was soil conservation, the other was as fencing for various fields and orchards and so on. So there were millions of plants out there. So we chose the we checked out Tamil Nadu, which was ruled by an oligopoly, and Karnataka, which at that time had a very corrupt regime, and then chose Andhra because Andhra seemed to have the best, most hospitable. Not that Andhra was clean or anything like that, but we had the best chance there thanks to knowing getting the certain bureaucrats to become our godfathers and advisors and so on and so forth. We played it a little smart. We did not, as I said, we are anti-corruption, but we were able to use certain people who were well reputed for their honesty and integrity as our advisors, and then able to sort of get things done. Even then, with all that, very slowly. So we had to choose something in that area, and then it became Andhra Pradesh. And the Chittoor district is the southernmost district of Andhra Pradesh. We searched a great deal for land, and obtaining land in the middle of nowhere, so to speak, was very difficult because its land was, the real estate was like really disorganized. It was like everybody and their brother, sister were selling you real estate. When you said, where's the real estate? They would say, from here to there. And you say, where is here? Where does it start? Where is there? They said, don't worry, you like this place, we'll get it for you. That kind of thing. So it took us forever to get started, even though we had decided that Chittoor district was where we were going to do things, the southernmost district closest to the agave. And that became the default point, but it took us 6 months to find a plot that had the requisite water. It's an arid area, it's in the Deccan shadow. The reason agave grow there is because there's low rainfall and so on. So we have, and distilleries need water. So there were about 10 criteria that the land had to satisfy, and we had to optimize on that. Eventually, we got about 90% of what we were looking for. Distance to a substation. We had to draw electricity from 5 kilometers away to start where we had to start. So those kinds of things, huge obstacles that are placed in the path of people who are trying to do things in rural areas. And the government offers zero help, really.
I see. Very, very tough journey. Absolutely. You guys have really like Buddha style persistence, definitely. Next question I have is from Vinayak and Parag, is saying, they both asked a question like, is the fermentation of Mahua is a regular process like you would ferment other alcohol like beer and others, as well as is it possible to create whiskey, rum, gin, that type of other spirits out of Mahua?
Conrad, you want to take that, or I can take it also?
I can take it. Beer is fermented from grain, which is starch. It has to be broken down into sugars before the yeast can consume it. Mahua is naturally has sugar, so it does not need any breaking down and can be fermented directly. And the fermentation is fairly straightforward. In terms of making spirits like whiskey, brandy, rum, they're made from different substrates, and I think Mahua is a very unique substrate. It's a category of wine. You have brandy from grapes, rum from sugarcane or sugarcane molasses, and whiskey from a variety of grain. They are separate categories. This is unique and on its own.
Got it. Got it. Understood. So since you guys are planning to scale, apart from relying on tribals to source your flowers, are you also thinking of creating your own mahua farms?
Yeah, so we are sticking with what we do best, which is to pick something from the forest area and from the fields of India and take them to the bottles. So we are specialists in that. We are not specialists in running. We have planted some mawa trees in our 44-acre distillery plot, and so, quite a lot of agave too. But that's far from what our requirements will be. So we would rather source from villagers who or tribal people. Now we are kind of trying to get a project going with some nomadic tribals of the south that work under a corporation devoted to tribal livelihood issues in the south, just as we are working with tribal groups in the north to source from them, ensure that they get value that they wouldn't get otherwise from the kind of raw material they supply us. But we work very closely with these raw material suppliers to ensure that we're getting quality raw material of the kind we want. And then we do all the rest, taking it, in terms of the quality issues, the production issues, which we have learned the hard way. We've gone through every mistake in the book until the next mistake shows up that's not in the book. And then we do what we do best. We're not going to get into farming ourselves.
Got it. Got it. And another question, related question around sourcing of your mahua. Is it, how do you source it? Is it a form of a contract with the tribals, or is it like they bring it and it's a cooperative? I mean, how is it structured?
As of now, there is no formal structure because there are enough sources. I mean, we've been written about enough that I think I personally have got contacted by groups in about 10 different parts of the country. I mean, there are 13 states. I mean, so people from all over keeps calling and saying, we'll supply you maua and stuff like that. And we generally, I think we are overwhelmed with the supplier on the supplier side. We prefer to work directly with tribals so that they get the benefits. We generally tell middlemen that we are not too interested in working with them. So if it's a tribal organized group, either a self-help group or a entrepreneur type group, we are happy to work with them as long as their background is tribal background. They have the connection with the people. They have the we form our relationships with them first, and when they trust us and they know that we are good for our word, then we work with them.
Got it. Another question by Ayush Patel, which is similar, but he has used some couple of acronyms which I'm not familiar with. So I'm going to read the question as it is. Is mahua procured from Gram Panchayat or individuals? Given that it is a MFP, people might be collecting it under CFR. So I'm not sure what is MFP or what is CFR. You guys might know this.
MFP is minor forest produce. Okay. And CFR, I don't know, maybe some regulations. I have not heard of CFR, Conrad.
No, I also haven't heard of CFR.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, the general idea is that these minor forest produce products require Gram Panchayat permission. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now, in certain states, I believe Odisha is one of them. The state excise people get involved also in if the people are trying to store more than their allowed quantity, because see, this is the thing we're trying to change policy-wise, that all these things about allowed quantity and all, it's like the big brother approach to dealing with maua. We believe that maua should be freed, because why should tribals be discriminated against? Why is maua treated different than jaggery or sugarcane or grains from which you can make alcohol? I mean, just because it happens to be tribal and tribal, it's the old British Raj sort of mothering concept, or is it also a combination of that with vested interests that want to make money from having tribal people buy, the country alcohol that is not made non-maua, or cheap IMFL? We don't know. We don't know what the reasons are, but there are several reasons why people want to keep that under control, and we are trying to tell governments, please free them. Free them to do what they have to do and to free the whole regime. I mean, then only we'll have some genuine change from the days of the Raj.
Right, right. Well, interesting point. And there is another question by Malcolm who said, apart from the Puritanism aspect of the British period, did your any other religious prohibitions, like either Hindu prohibitions of not drinking, alcohol consumption prohibitions, and all that, did that create any added obstacle for you guys?
Obstacle? I don't, not for us. I mean, so India as a whole takes a very hypocritical attitude to alcohol, where the states all love the revenue from alcohol, which constitutes maybe on the average 20% of their revenue. But officially, they're busy trying to impose prohibition or trying to put down alcohol in some form or the other. So it's a hypocritical attitude that is best shed, and we don't know when it will be, if at all. Various state governments have made missteps in the area of prohibition, partial or total, and we see all kinds of corruption and crime increasing dramatically. Again, only certain segments, right, politicians, bureaucrats, cops, and so on, benefiting. It's well known that in Gujarat you can get anything you want for a price, and that's the state in which total prohibition, right, has been around forever. So these are the kinds of things that we find are really stupid, and hopefully will be dropped soon by the government. And one of the reasons why we are trying to just take Mahua abroad is that we can make it here, and we can also do a service to tribal people and the nation by building this whole category abroad, in showing the world how amazingly versatile this spirit is. You can't make whiskeys and rum and beer out of it, but certainly you can make any number of varieties of Mahua-based products. And that's what we have done. We have pioneered it, and we hope to be the ones who present it to the world.
Got it. Got it. So final question, we are almost like 2 more minutes to the end of this session, but final question, which again piggybacks on what you just said, is as you are expanding globally, how are you selecting markets? Because this product is also has to be educated. I mean, people need to kind of learn about this product. Nobody knows right now. How are you even estimating the market size, and what kind of partnerships and distributorships are you guys thinking about when you go global?
Well, it'll have to be step by step. We tend, being a lean and mean company, frugal company, we like to use word of mouth, and we like to use media splashing. So our story is very strong. We believe the Mahua story, the cultural story, the tribal story, there's no other cultural based alcohol in the world anywhere close to it, even close to it. It's an astounding story, which once we present it, I think the people will pounce on it. Already there's interest on the part of foreign publications like The Economist or the BBC, who've heard about this story and are flirting around with doing stories. But we are telling them, wait until we actually are ready to take Mahua to the world. Once we start with our superior expression, Mahua, and we are ready, we'll tell you, and then maybe the story can be spread. And so we are going to take it to places that have colonial past, for example, where they will be interested to see what they had suppressed and what has happened from this amazing product. That what could have happened in 130 years, we are doing it in a compressed form in 2 to 3 years. And if we can do this much, imagine what else can be done with it. The other thing is to use hopefully the pride of people of Indian origin to say something astounding has come out of India. It's not just another beer, which is not a native Indian product. It's not just another scotch. It's not just another agave spirit. Let's talk about our own stuff, which is, it's made in other parts of the world. But here's something that's uniquely Indian, and it's amazing that it can compete with the West. And it's something unique. So that's what we are hoping. The Indian diaspora will carry our story, will invest in our equity crowdfunding, and will help us make something, this Black Swan Blue Ocean event a success.
Fantastic. Very much wishing for that, Desmond. Happy to see that you are really taking this on. There are a few more questions, but I just want to give you a couple of minutes back. You have a small video to play. Why don't you guys go ahead?
Yeah. So, one of the fun things that we got to do with the current expressions of our Mahua spirit, which we're selling in Goa and Karnataka and our liquor, is to think about doing a short ritual with these base expressions, not these superior expressions that we'll be taking abroad, but to do a short ritual, because it's such, as Conrad mentioned, it gives you it's a clean shot. It's a lovely lingering taste, floral taste, and so on. So rather than doing the tequila shot. Actually, agave spirit shots are what we also recommend with our agave instead of tequila in India, because we are doing Indian agave. But this is a completely different level of pleasant shot with a clean high, guaranteed. So in the course of creating this ritual, we looked at to distinctly associated with India via the Namaste. And Namaste has become now famous. Then we said, the Mahua is the tree of life, give it respect. And then introduce an element of fun at the end of drinking, which involves, a little bit of Bollywood, shaking your leg or shaking your booty, right? So here's something that you can read about it. We'll post it on the website, but for now, just have a look at me doing it with a guy who I just taught how to do it. It'll take you 2 seconds.
Fantastic.
There's a shot glass. Okay. All right.
Desmond, you're a great dancer. You've learned.
I wouldn't say so. Don't say that around Conrad, please.
No, that's fantastic.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing that fun video. I think if anything, we have learned a lot about our heritage tribal drink, the challenges that you faced, and you still stay optimistic, and you've got a distillery going, and you're very gung-ho about taking to the world, and you want to put India on the map of heritage drinks. That's fantastic and very inspirational for the upcoming entrepreneurs who are in this space as well. There are a few more questions, but I think because of the paucity of time and we have another session lined up, we will probably reach out to get your answers offline and then post it on our social media handles. Thank you very much for joining us today, Desmond and Conrad.